Hey, do a thing. Do a thing. Nah. What's going on, everybody? Today we are talking about the fact that love is not irritable. Let's dive right in. Welcome back, everybody. My name is AP Raleigh, author of Abide, and I make Christian content to help both you and me grow in our walk with Christ. Now, we are back in 1 Corinthians 13:5, talking about the fact that love is not irritable. A lot of different translations will say it's not easily provoked or easily angered. This one, we're really jumping right back to the very original definition point that we started out with. Up top, I got a video link back to that one if you want more, but the fact that love is patient. So if we're talking about what the heck is love and what is it not, well, if it's patient, then it's not irritable. This is a pretty nice, simple connection in my brain, at least, of the fact that irritability is a little bit different than just standard patience, because oftentimes we'll say, oh, I'm being so patient right now, when we are steaming angry inside, when we are frustrated. Any little tiny thing will set us off. That's not continuing to be loving. That's just kind of bottling things up. And that irritability point comes in more often than not when we are bottling everything up. And all of a sudden, just any little tiny pinprick, any little tiny thing will end up driving us crazy. Now, it's important to remember, though, back with that patience, that patience doesn't mean that you're never angry. Patience doesn't mean we shut it off like a light switch and it's just, oh, gone. That is a very old and very wrong theology that I'm not sure where it came from, but it has been publicized far too many times, and it's not the way God works. It's not the way human beings work. We have feelings, we have emotions. You don't have the ability to control them, only manage them. So that is what this is talking about. The fact that, hey, you're going, yes, I'm being incredibly patient. I'm being kind because I'm not just laying into these people. Yes, to an extent, except that everything that's happened thus far has built up to this level where, sure, you're not going off on them, but any little thing that comes up, we're responding out of this just impatient frustration. And that is something that's not loving. We can't say that we're being loving, that we're being kind when that's what's going on. I know I have an issue with that because I thought for a long time, yeah, that makes perfect sense. If I just hold back, if I just calm down a little bit, enough, I'm not going to push my whole blind rage on you, then I'm being patient, then I'm being loving. That's kind. But what I'm really doing is failing to deal with my own issues and failing to deal with the frustrations that I have. This is something that comes up a lot, especially for people anymore of, work is a huge frustration. You've got a problem there, and then you come home and maybe the kids are being chaotic or something is going on. I don't know what. But you just go off on somebody because of this other thing that you're dealing with. There's this general irritability just hanging out, doing its thing. And the reason that the Bible talks about this not being loving is because that is that natural progression. Like it's normal to assume that that's the most loving thing I can do, is not sit down and walk you through the trauma of my day every single day. That doesn't mean we don't need to maybe have a little chat with God in the car on the way home about what is going on, maybe get that off our chest before we come into a situation, before we get wrecked with that. And this is something that I'm finding is really helpful to keep top of mind, to just constantly be remembering that, hey, no, I need to have a moment of peace. I need to have a moment to bring things down and remember that I'm not in that situation anymore, or this person isn't doing that thing that I'm so frustrated about. I'm outside of that. So I don't need to go off on them. I don't need to bring them into my circumstance. I don't need to use them as my personal punching bag, because that is not going to help anybody. And that's not always easy. And it's important to remember when we're jumping into the whole love concept, perfect love is God. And I'm not God. I am pursuing that. I am attempting to get closer to that. And every day I'm trying my best. despite whatever's going on to get there. But you do not have to be perfection right off the bat here. That's not the point. We're trying to get closer, not be God. So with that said, I think this irritability piece, there's a couple other sides to it. Because there is the general, just a certain thing drives you crazy, or a certain instance. We've all got our pet peeves, that thing that is going to send you over the edge. So is that wrong? Is that okay? You know what? This is something I don't know. Because there are things that I struggle with just like that. And there are frustrations that I think we all have. And does that mean I can't love that community? Does that mean I can't love that group? If there's some, specific people group that's driving you mental, I truly and deeply hate it when people go on and on and on about the problems of the world and what's in the news, because I can't do anything about it. And it frustrates me. And all of a sudden I become very irritable. And I've got to remember to pull back and go, oh man, why am I irritable? And this has been a fun exercise actually in going into that. Of the reason it frustrates me so much when people go on and on and on about that is the fact that first off, I know God's in control, so it doesn't matter. And it's not that it doesn't matter because people are genuinely affected, but it doesn't matter in this grand scheme of I need to sit back and be terrified. I don't need to be afraid. I don't need to worry. And I want people to understand that they also don't need to worry. And so I can fail to communicate that and then hold them to a standard that they never knew I placed on them, which is not okay. Or I can try to understand that, hey, I'm frustrated here because they're not understanding why I feel the way that I do. And I'm not communicating any of that. And it's been really cool to see the switch over, because I've got a lot of people like this in my life, and to see the switch over of what happens when instead of coming and being so combative and this doesn't matter, or shaming their feelings or putting them down because I'm frustrated with the issue and I just want it to go away and for them to stop talking to me about it. And instead of doing that, instead I'm phrasing it the exact same way I'm taking in the information, which is, oh man, this terrible thing is happening. Yes, I completely agree. That is awful and unacceptable. And I'm so glad that, God's got control over this, that when you're talking about the end times being tomorrow, could very well be, that's just fine because I know where I'm going. And I'm so confident in what's going to come and what's going to happen next. I don't need to have that worry. And, figuring out how to word that's a little difficult. It's hard, especially if I know there's parents that watch this and, well, how do you explain to a 2-year-old that this is really getting annoying, that they're going on something random? Obviously, I do not have kids, so I don't know what age they start going off on random stuff. I'm guessing it's probably older than 2. But how do I explain that I'm sorry, I really don't care about the train set. I just can't do it today. It's been a day. There's some of this that's not easy. And that's why I wanted to say, have that moment in your car, that moment with God, that moment wherever you're at before you're entering into a situation, so that I don't need to be combative to a 5-year-old, be like, I'm just frustrated. Instead, I can tone it down and go, man, this is so cool that they love this thing. And how can I encourage them and grow them and show them that, man, if someone had done that to me when I was 5, that was the greatest thing ever, that they would come and play cars or Pokemon or whatever I was going off into. How amazing was that when an adult would cherish what you cared about? That is really cool. And I can remember what that's like if I just step back a little ways from my circumstance. And that is one of these beautiful points, because when we're talking about love is not about me, and funny enough, not about you either. It's not conditional. There are no conditions on this. I'm simply choosing to love you because I feel like it, because I want to, because frankly, God did that for me, and so I'm doing that for you now. So if we want to step back from that irritability, we need to come into a situation understanding that I am choosing to love you. I don't care if this is not going to be the most enjoyable thing for me, or the greatest thing that's going to help me out and make me better, or that, this 5-year-old kid isn't helping me out with my work issues. And my gosh, that is not the point. The point is to have patience with other people, to care deeply about whatever they want to care about today, and to not feel the need to overwhelm, to take over, to make things mine, and it's the story that's about me. And that irritability just seems to grow out of that narrative of nothing outside of my story matters. And let me reiterate, this is a problem for me. This is one of, I think, the hardest ones on this list to try to work through, to try to make progress in, because at least for me, it's this daily reminder. It's not something, it's a habit that I need to form, but I've got to take back out this way of thinking, this way of doing that I have been in for pretty much my whole life, and rephrase that entire narrative. And it's really hard, but seeing this, I am actively trying to do it, and I can't believe how much difference it's making in a very short amount of time. And the amount of love that people feel in a very, very short amount of time when I've taken my struggle not completely out of the narrative. It's not about that, because right now that's not the focus that I want to bring to the table. And again, I know I've said it multiple times. This is one where I want to cycle through a few times. I think it's really important to remember that you are not shutting off your emotions. You are not ignoring the problems of the day. You are not ignoring your struggles. You are dealing with them. If you want to not be irritable when you love people, if you want to be the kind of person that can do that, then that step back has to happen. And the only way that it happens is that these issues are dealt with. Otherwise, you will explode or implode 50-50. I'm one of the implosive types. It's not fun for me. Putting that pain on yourself it's not deserved. You don't need to hurt yourself in order to love others. That's not a requirement. And then to just top this off, I think it's important. There's a story that I got a long time ago. It's one of my favorites, and I tell it a lot. It was kind of my first introduction to gentle, loving kindness. It was an old boss, the work situation that was going on there. There was a bunch of strife. It was a real problem. There was irritability was through the roof. There was a lot of issues going on. And so the CEO came in, he was talking to everybody, and I wasn't really one of the issue people. I was kind of brand new and didn't know what was going on. And he recognized that right off the bat. So I just asked him, how can I help the situation? What can I do? And this was this introduction to patience, because he said, just assume you're wrong. First off, I said, what do you mean assume you're wrong? He goes, whenever something comes up and whenever there's frustration, whenever there's problems, that irritability is people poking you and you responding. So just assume, even if they said something terribly offensive, they looked you dead in the eyes and said, you're an idiot, step back and assume you heard them wrong. That alone changed my whole world, because you start to respond with gentle, loving kindness instead of, no, you're wrong. You start to respond with, oh, I'm not sure what brought you to that place, or what's going on to make you feel that way. I definitely, I don't think that's who I am, but obviously I've done something that's hurt you, or, and you start to bring this narrative in, and it's so difficult when people are literally trying to get you to fight, and they want you to respond, and they want you to be aggressive because they are looking to take out their frustration on somebody. Do you have any idea how hard that is to do when they are standing there going, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm not sure if I understood. I'm trying to love you. I'm trying to help. I don't want to be a burden. What can I change? Even when they have directly insulted you, because instead of taking that as the insult that's intended, you are greeting them not with, and let me be clear, no sarcasm. This is not, what do you mean? I'm brilliant. Like, this isn't a sarcastic. This is genuinely, oh, is that actually what you believe? Because I didn't think that that's what I put forward, and I didn't mean to. How can I change to fit your world. And oh my gosh, does that just take this huge, massive step back, and they're completely disarmed because you're asking someone who's trying to fight you for help. Who's going to kick somebody while they're down? It's so hard. So that little story has ended up changing my whole world. And I realized going through this that what he was describing was not being irritable. Because instead of meeting a challenge with anger, instead of being prepped and ready for a fight, he's prepped and ready to forgive and love. And God tells us to forgive and forgive and forgive and forgive. And there's not really a stopper on that one. And so in order to be in that place where I am ready to accept and love people no matter how angry and aggressive and whatever they are, and when I am angry and aggressive and frustrated, how do I take myself out of that? It's being the exact opposite of what's going on and providing this gentle, loving, patient kindness. And I love that. So this week I am pushing forward, trying to figure out how to do that better still, making sure that I am finding those little pet peeve moments for me that are such a deep frustration and finding ways to love people through that, not to talk down to them, not to make things worse, not to poke my own jabs, but instead to have this just a understanding together of what's important and why, or expressing my frustration, really dealing with things in the moment rather than bottling them up. So hope that helps for you. I do have more videos. If you want to go back to that patient one, up here for you. If you want to see the rest of the series so far and you missed stuff, down here for you. Have a wonderful week.